Hello, everyone. Can you see me?
You can see your screen.
All right, wonderful. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Seung, and pronouns he, him, and I work as a digital media specialist for Bay Area Rapid Transit. One of my jobs is to run the day-to-day social media operations for BART. And, BART Twitter is definitely one of the main platforms that I help run every work day. And this is my presentation more on the social media and the transit agencies, especially now that we are 2 years into COVID-19 pandemic and what transit agencies can do on the social media front end of their communications efforts. So I chose this GIF because I come across this GIF all the time, just whenever I put out anything that people might find interesting or very youth-oriented. They always think I'm like this 40-year-old guy that is trying to kind of fit in with the kids. I'm only 29, but I do understand the sentiment that, I am trying to fit in with the kids. And so I just wanted to start off by saying last December, I was on the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle, which is as crazy as it sounds, considering that it's only social media work for a transit agency company. But they really took an interest to what we do at BART with our communications efforts in social media. And I even got a pretty snazzy photo shoot on a BART train. The only downside was that it was a downpour that morning that really kind of made things a little slippery and a little wet. But they really focused on what BART is doing to win over public awareness and also ridership confidence using viral tweets. And I wanted to explore the one that they really focused in on, which is this tweet, the one on the right. The Chronicle tried to frame this as this great viral thing that really kind of blew up NBA Twitter and also transit Twitter, which I think is very flattering. But it was part of a long-term strategy that serendipitously came with this golden opportunity. With COVID, a growth strategy for BART's ridership growth was to help promote taking BART to events, mainly like the Chase Center, because the Warriors are playing, they have concerts, and the Chase Center has been great partners for both Muni and BART in promoting public transit. So I started off very basic stuff, take BART and then Muni to go to see a Warriors game. But I was always on the prowl to kind of really elevate the awareness of this, and the Your Lakers thirsty for wins thing just kind of came at the right time, at the right place. And even after a viral tweet, which is empty of substance, I must admit, I always try to play up the real practicality of taking public transit to Chase Center as much as I can. But the Chronicle tried to frame this as a social media is like the way to help get ridership back on BART during this pandemic. But I'm not really too sure about that. I think, I put this tweet out after the article went out and I had some time to think about it. But nothing really trumps better service, better wayfinding, better transit coordination, and just better ridership experience to regain public confidence. And where that kind of communications are happening is on social media. And my job, I think, is to kind of see it and respond to it and engage with that as much as possible. And my boss, Alicia, who helps run BART Twitter with me, also chimed in the article the same way. This is a quote from the article. Our strategy for social is to use it as a chat room as opposed to a bullhorn. And I could not agree more with that statement. If only, I have my favorites of what kind of posts I really want to go viral, but these rarely do. I really want to focus on giving detailed, direct solutions to writers that they feel empowered to know and to use to help make their BART experience better. The one on the left is promoting extra special extended service in anticipation for outside lands and Halloween, last Halloween. And the one on the right is somebody reported a biohazard on a train car, and it was a big, somebody puked on the train, and we, through our social media tools that we have, we were able to report this, and we got cleaning crews to mop up the vomit, which I think is so valuable. These are customer response solutions that really try to tackle real world imperfections. I mean, the Halloween one is definitely more BART's inability at the time to run past 9 p.m. But nonetheless, I think was very helpful. But even then, these have limitations. Like the one quote tweet you see in this Halloween service advisory was someone who was decided to take BART at midnight on Halloween, but they were really upset that the next train was only going to come in the next 25 minutes. So they were just kind of waiting on the platform, but that was the best we could do at the time. I think people perhaps are interested in learning, what makes up for a successful social media presence for a public transit agency. And I kind of outlined the 4 no's that I use on a daily basis over the last 3 years that I have worked at BART to become as good as I can at my job. I need to know everything I can about my employer. I have to be a subject matter expert of BART. I have to know as much as I can about the operations, the schedules, very odd trivia, how much the BART car weigh, how fast can it go, where, et cetera, et cetera. And also the people who are in charge of certain things, like who is in charge of M&Es, so I can ask them about certain questions. If we have biohazards, what sort of chain of command do we need to go through at BART to make sure that that mess gets cleaned up? It took a long time, but with encouragement of Alicia and my colleagues, I think I've kind of gotten to that point where I could, close my eyes and kind of see the full landscape of what I need to do to get my job done. Another important thing to know is your audience. Social media, despite everybody, it feels like in the world being there are only a handful of constant high volume engagers that are always engaging with the content you're putting out. So it's really important to know where their politics lie, what sort of demands have they made to improve your system, what platforms are they at. Depending on platforms, the tone of your audience can change significantly. The crowd that follows BART on Instagram is wholly different than the ones that follow BART on Twitter. And also, if you are an interurban system like BART, cities can be a big determinant of that too. San Francisco is very different in how people voice their wants and their complaints than how people in, say, Walnut Creek do. I think boundaries are very important as well. Just to know that, what is the territory you're allowed to roam to get your job as most efficiently as possible without getting in trouble. I need to know what my risks are with what I could share with the public. And also, what are the worst case scenarios that I could be dealing with on my social media responsibilities? It could mean anything from what I did personally, sharing on social media. Did I use a profanity? Is that the worst case scenario? Is it a typo? Is it sharing misinformation? Also think about the worst case scenario for a public transit agency. What is it? Is it a terrorist attack? Is it a shooting? Is it a natural disaster? I think thinking that throughout always helps know, what, to what degree of confidence you can maneuver around within your territory. And I think really importantly for the personal level, your limits are really important too. you know, when I try not to make as many over promises as possible. I always try to double check the facts that I receive before I share it with the public. So and because of that, sometimes it feels like BART probably is not sharing as much as maybe perhaps other agencies are. But I know that when I'm sharing them, I feel very confident that that will be followed through by the frontline staff. And the futilities too. There are certain processes in how customer complaints are dealt with that just is not very efficiently kind of laid out to be resolved. For instance, I complaining to BART Twitter about a crime that you're seeing on a train is not as effective as you just calling police dispatch or calling 911. It takes longer. They are not the dispatch might not be as responsive, but these are the futilities that are part of your job that you have to navigate through. And I cannot stress this enough. If there are people in positions of power or are looking for a social media manager at your transit agency, give your social media manager the tools and the freedom to navigate these 4 no's. Without them, they won't be able to effectively do their jobs. And I think that will be a big hindrance and a big, a wasted opportunity for your agency as well. I always try to share the little wins that BART goes through. Never get bored of the classics is what I say. Celebrate every little progress. For example, I recently learned that Embarcadero Station is replacing its old platform lights with brighter LED lights. Very basic stuff that, probably it's more of a shame that it wasn't replaced earlier. But nonetheless, people at BART have done this to better improve the rider experience at that station. And we have future plans laid out as well to bring that progress to other stations. I think those are worth celebrating. And it is so important for your agency to convey that, that you're doing work to make riders' lives easier. Another thing, more personal end, but I really do think that separating service alerts from the main account is very important. Don't let the little announcements get awash by all these delay announcements. Some agencies really heavily rely on getting delay announcements out as transparently and as accurately and as quickly as possible. We use an automated alert system called SFR Alert to push that out as a secondary account where we will only share if there is a major delay or a significant delay that the public should know about. And so I really think that this kind of delineation has helped BART effectively communicate on the social media end as well. Scaling, I think getting the little things right helps you to scale up and pick fights. Advocate for your publicness or your budget or your transitness where you feel appropriate. Sometimes they could be real big people or institutions that might be a little intimidating to confront, like Elon Musk. I know he's a bit of an antagonist within the transit space for good reason, but I think BART really kind of knocked it out of the park with our kind of dunk on him. We brought numbers, we brought facts, we brought a good argument as well to really kind of lay out on Elon, like, hey, maybe you're wrong. Another thing is, taking on the Senate Republicans during 2020 when they were kind of negotiating out COVID stimulus packages, and we felt the need to publicly call out the Senate GOP to, hey, we have been moving around essential workers through the pandemic thus far, and we feel kind of left behind. And so I think only by doing the little things I've shown, like the progresses that we're making with the station lights or service improvements, that earns the public trust enough to do these fights and have the public on your side. People sometimes ask me, oh, we don't have enough content to go around. I think there's content everywhere you look at it when you're working at a public transit agency. Most importantly, the people that work there. Your colleagues are your content. Let's just look around, and as public transit agencies, celebrate the labor that makes your trains run, and also celebrate the public service that the employees are putting forth every day. I really do think that showing people behind the scenes cut through this lazy stereotype of public transit employees being lazy or indifferent or just like overcompensated. These people are really doing often backbreaking or life-saving work. And social media, if anything, can be most effective at breaking down these narrative barriers. And so, use it to your full advantage. I really think that every time we do something like this, it kind of brightens up my day. It brightens up our Twitter feed, and the engagements we get are always very positive and very celebratory. So, highly recommend this tactic. But I do want to share, there are some risks that goes into taking risks on social media. Let me start with the first one. We had the BART pony. We had a mini horse that rode BART trains. And this was the information that we were provided. Apparently, the owner did not provide paperwork. And there was some confusion between the frontline staff and how they handled this BART pony getting into the BART system. That erroneous information, that mixed information, only caused more confusion, both internally and externally, and that only led to more media cycles about the BART pony. Like, this is a nurse, the KQED, our local radio station in the Bay Area, drove out like 2.5 hours to the farm where the BART pony lived and interviewed the owner and the pony and the people that need the pony as a service animal. The second one, the TikTok. So this was a Bay Area TikTok, which the OP for some reason decided to proclaim that only the peninsula, like San Mateo and Santa Clara County, are the true Bay Area, quote unquote. And we didn't say anything. It was just one emoji, right? And this was by far the most popular BART tweet of all time. But because there are profanities and it's really like it's kind of gossipy. There are colleagues who are like, why did you tweet this? There was one very veteran television news reporter in the Bay Area who called my colleague and thought that this was the most unprofessional thing that he has ever seen on social media, and tried to get us to take it down. But my boss, Alicia, she was like, I explained to her why this is funny and why this is worth the risk taking, and she kind of sided with me. But that's the perils of getting too sassy. It's an art. It could go either way. This could have received 10 likes and that could have been the end of the day, but instead it got 24,000 plus. I think that also it really shows the power of trusting in your social media manager to make the right decision, and also backing the person that you have hired to run these accounts. Another thing that's important is world-class standards for public transit social media. These are kind of the 4 accounts I look at. Like Metro de Medellin in Colombia, I think do fantastic work with their service advisories, their celebration of public transit as a public service, really unmatched in the world. And they have beautiful photography and videography that they use on their Twitter feed and elsewhere. I think they might be the best in the world in social media work for public transit agencies. Mexico City also do very interesting threads. They like to use stats to explain why their staff are conducting things in a certain way. Tons of advisories, which really kind of show the scale of the Mexico City system. Moscow Metro, very simple. They only post memes. They don't ever do service advisories, but I think it kind of works in a weird way for them because they're just such like a Reddit account for some reason. ScotRail, I wanted to give a shout out because I think they really kind of capture the right tones that the people are looking for. And I think they do a really good job. These are kind of the platforms and people ask me sometimes, like, well, all this is about Twitter, but like, what about the other outlet platforms? And I wanted to focus on a couple. I want to lay it out. BART is currently active on TikTok because we wanted to tap into a very young audience who are probably students and taking BART because they cannot afford a car in the Bay Area. And I think we use very lighthearted content mainly to kind of win over public trust from the young Gen Z audiences that are heavily on TikTok. There was a time when BART was also on Reddit. We were very active on, like, say, our Bay Area or San Francisco. There were some certain posts that really got like a lot of traction. But I think just the intrinsically anti-authoritarian nature of Reddit made things difficult for BART to really kind of promote what BART is doing to improve our system. And we got a little bit of cyberbullying, which is not very common, I think, in other platforms, even like Twitter. But it just got a little ugly. And so we decided to drop Reddit altogether in our social media outreach for BART. I wanted to end it on one note, which is, okay, all these tweets, all these posts, what are they good for? And why bother even having a social media manager? What's the value of a social media presence for a public transit agency? I have a number to provide for this question. It's $300 million. So in 2019, we were going to host a Twitter town hall to talk really mainly about congestion, which is a crazy thing to say now in 2022 when our ridership is still less than a quarter of what it was. But this was the big topic of the day. It's partly because we are trying to get the FTA's attention, the Federal Transportation Authority Agency, to release the grant that they have agreed to share for the Trans-Bay core capacity relief efforts, with substations and the communication-based train control system, more cars, and just improvements that will help BART run more trains through the Trans-Bay too. For some reason, the FTA just hold out $300 million worth of grants from being released to BART. So this was one tactic that we took to pressure FTA. And when we announced this, we actually got a phone call from the FTA's communications department asking, hey, what is up with this? And in the lead up to that town hall, they kept peppering BART with questions about, hey, can you like postpone this? Or can you like not do this? And then 15 minutes before this town hall started, the FTA called the then BART general manager, Grace Chronicle, and said the grant is secured and the grant will be released. And basically, the months of preparation I did for this Twitter town hall, materials I had, was thrown out 15 minutes before it started. And we had to take a wholly different tone of actually congratulating the FTA for their contributions rather than skewering them as we were planning to do. So $300 million in the bank. I think that's kind of where I wanted to end, but I really want to emphasize that despite all the complicated work and the strategies that go behind and the purposes that go behind social media for public transit agencies, it's really supposed to be fun work. It's supposed to be, lighthearted. It's supposed to be transparent. It's supposed to represent the best affects of what a public servant is supposed to be. And so I wanted to end on this note that, don't forget that we are doing this all because we care about public transit. We love public transit. We want to see better public transit in the United States. I want to see that for BART as well. And yeah, despite the peaks and the valleys of the work, I really want to emphasize that social media work can be effective communications, not the only effective communications, but one of a package that really help promote more public trust and transparency, and also just more fun. So on that note, I wanted to end my presentation, and the contacts are below, and thank you for listening.